That's me. I'm on the Apple M2 announcement. That was a surprise.
I have never used a laptop or any computer in my entire life that I haven't had any complaints with. Not once has it slowed me down, or have I complained wishing it was more powerful, or that the battery lasted longer. I don't think I've even stressed it out. The 14-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro was my perfect laptop, and somehow my perfect laptop just got even more perfect. Meet the 14-inch M2 Max MacBook Pro from Apple. I've only had it for literally a day, so I haven't gotten to use it too much. The design, the body hasn't changed at all, which I'm totally okay with. I really like the look of the M1 Max MacBook Pro. I think it's one of the nicest looking laptops I've ever owned in my life, and the keyboard is just perfect for me. The trackpad is huge and works so well that I've actually stopped using a mouse completely. And can I just say, the 14-inch MacBook Pro is the exact right size for me. I never feel like it's too small or that I need more screen real estate. Even with editing, color grading, I'm totally fine, but it also packs away so nicely that it's nice to just carry around, or when you're traveling, fits in your carry-on perfect. Okay, so what has changed, and that's the insides. We now have the M2 chips, which means even more performance, which is just unreal, and better battery life because it's so powerful it barely has to stress itself. The M2 Max CPU performance is 20% better than the M1 Max. The GPU cores have now increased from 32 to 38, and because of that, they're claiming 30% better GPU performance. And now you can get 96 gigabytes of unified memory, up from 64, which was already a lot. 96. They're saying that DaVinci Resolve is 30% faster than on the M1 Max, which, if you're a DaVinci user, that's a big upgrade. I don't use DaVinci right now, so I haven't gotten tested out yet, but it's one more reason why I'm thinking I should start using DaVinci. I feel like just all the signs are pointing to I need to learn DaVinci. But those numbers, they're all fine and dandy, nice to hear. How is it actually in real world tests? And so I wanted to check out Final Cut Pro, put a whole bunch of different effects on the timeline, see how it does, and then see how the export speeds differ. Is there any difference? How much faster is it? I started off with an 8K timeline, threw in some Panasonic S5 Mark II footage, up-resed it. I don't even have any 8K footage. With an adjustment layer and color grade, no problems, just buttery smooth. Scrolling through, no jitters, no hiccups. You hit space and it starts playing instantly. There is no lag whatsoever. And that's in 8K, that's pretty impressive. And then I just, for fun, decided to add 10 adjustment layers of Gaussian blur. I'm like, what's like a heavy plugin? Gaussian blur. And again, totally fine. Scrubbing, playing, everything is fine. Didn't feel any bogging down. But interestingly, I couldn't really tell any difference between the M1 Max and the M2 Max. They both were perfect. Then I tried to do some exports. It was about 2 minutes and 20 seconds of footage. And for the M1 Max, the export time was 59 seconds. And for the M2 Max, it was 58 seconds. Probably the exact same. Mind you, both of those are not plugged into power, and 8K timelines. But interesting that there really wasn't any speed difference in the export. And so I started thinking, is Final Cut maybe not optimized for the M2 chips yet? And curiously, they also didn't mention anything about Final Cut in the keynote presentation. I don't know. Then I took things up a notch and I decided to make myself a 16K timeline. I don't know why I need a 16K timeline. Up-resed it again. And here's where we start seeing both of them slow down a little bit. And again, it's hard to see any differences using it. It's slowing down a little bit. If it was in ProRes, it would play completely fine. But yeah, who's editing 16K ProRes right now? But you could still pretty much work with this. There's a little bit more hiccups, but you could edit a 16K timeline with H.264, H.265 footage and be fine, which is crazy. I don't even use 8K. 16K is like so far beyond anything we do. And even with those 10 layers of Gaussian blur, I was still kind of able to do things. It was a little bit more sticky, and when we press play, there was a little bit of a lag, which is understandable. And then I try to do the export again with these 16K timelines, and the times were, for the M1 Max, it was 2 minutes and 56 seconds. By the way, the fans did not turn on for either laptop, which is insane. Exporting 16K timelines and the fans don't even turn on. And for the M2 Max, the export time was, this is like around a 10-second timeline. The export time was 2 minutes and 36 seconds. So that's about like 10-11% faster export, but only if you're doing 16K timelines. So I don't really know what's going on here. If somebody smarter than me could explain. But yeah, very interesting results. I full well admit I could be doing something wrong, but the point here is that the power and efficiency of these M1 and M2 chips are so crazy. It's really the first time in my creative career where I feel like the computing power is so far beyond what I need to do with my cameras, with editing programs. It feels like the camera companies have now fallen behind, which this is the first time ever. So why do you need that much power? Well, I don't most of the time, but there are other people. For example, if you work in After Effects, you're gonna be super pumped with this extra power. Or if you're working on 3D models or 3D programs, that's when you're probably really gonna start to feel it. I'm curious, are DaVinci Resolve users gonna notice the difference? I can't wait to hear. But it also means that the computer doesn't have to work as hard. It's more efficient, and therefore you're gonna get way better battery life than on some other laptop that isn't as powerful, especially not plugged into power. The fact that you don't have to be plugged into power to get that crazy performance is nuts. All of the exports I did, all the tests I did, that was unplugged, not plugged into power. And yeah, that's a huge deal for me. I love editing just, wherever I am and not always having to be plugged in. I do think the people that have M1 Max or M1 chip laptops, the M2 isn't gonna be as crazy of an upgrade, and you might not need to upgrade at all. But if you aren't in the Apple Silicon, the M1's ecosystem yet, there's so many reasons to get yourself an M2 MacBook Pro. There's no other computer that I can recommend for creatives right now that's even close. These will save you hours and hours of time working on your projects and days of headaches not having to fight with your machine because it's slowing you down, bogging you down, there's issues. All of that stuff, it makes a big difference in your creative process, at least for me. The M1s and M2s now are unlike anything that I've seen or experienced. And the best part about this kind of like overkill of performance is that you might actually be able to go, like with one of the cheaper models. You don't necessarily need to go for the high-end, top-of-the-line model, which was usually kind of the case for creatives. You kind of wanted to max out things because we were always on like that, like, is it gonna be enough? And so you just max it out. Now you can probably go with more like a baseline MacBook Pro and be totally fine. And interestingly, now it feels like for the last, 5 or so years, you'd buy a laptop or computer and then it just felt like a year later it was already slow and that you kind of needed an upgrade and you needed a performance boost. I've been using the M1 Max for a year now, and not once have I felt like, oh wow, this thing's really getting stressed out, like I need more performance. And so I feel like you can now finally again buy a computer and actually use it for many years. Like around the 2012 period, I remember I bought an iMac and I used that thing for at least 5 years and it was doing just fine. But this is like the next level of that. Like I haven't even come close to stressing this thing out, and now we already have more powerful ones. So yeah, I'm curious, are we all of a sudden gonna have this like boom of like crazy camera, like 16K cameras and just more data and like more robust codecs that need so much performance they couldn't do them before, but now they can? Yeah, it's kind of your move now, camera companies, to catch up now with the performance that we have. I can't state enough how much I love my 14-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro, and now we have an even more perfect laptop. Freaking wild. I'll take it. All right. I hope you guys like this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.